Now, but I know I do. What's yours?
Oh, I already gave them all. You weren't listening? I can't give them again. Good afternoon. The legislature seems to be heading. And to be clear, I'm still very concerned with the very people we're trying to help. But today, I want to point out a few areas where we agree, which hasn't gotten as much attention. Because as I've said, we actually agree more than some would think. And when we don't, it's usually about the how and what pace we're on to get there. You've all heard me talk about workforce development a lot over the last 6 years and the need to grow our workforce given our demographic challenges. The budget I proposed in January focused on those challenges, and the House agreed with much of what we proposed and then added a few ideas of their own. Here are a few examples of agreement. They included money I proposed for refugee resettlement, workers move up, and up to attain professional certifications with free courses. And they fully funded our VSAC Trade Scholarship Program, which will help put folks on a path to get the skills they need for the jobs we need. Now, what they didn't include were my initiatives to make Vermont more affordable. But we'll save that one for another day, because today I want to highlight our areas of agreement. So I also want to thank the Senate for working with my team on the public safety and school safety packages. And while we haven't gotten everything we asked for, I appreciate their willingness to work with us to find solutions. I believe public safety is a shared priority with legislators, and we've made progress. The Senate has also worked with us on the forensic bills, helping advance initiatives and stabilize our system of care. And I appreciate the House for also supporting our mental health initiatives, including funding our mobile crisis response and mental programs our communities want and are in desperate need of. I also want to take a minute once again to thank the Senate Economic Development Committee for their work on S-100, the housing bill. We were supportive of this bill when it came out of committee, and although I'm concerned that most of the Act 250 provisions have been watered down, it still gives us a strong session, and I'm hopeful we can continue working together to find consensus. I know there will be times when we're just not going to agree, especially when it comes to adding more taxes and fees and just spending instead of investing money. And I also know some in the majority party want to frame the debates we're having on child care, paid family leave, climate action, and others as we're for it and the governor is against it. But that's simply not the case. And I get it. It makes political messaging a little more complicated when we agree on the goals. But there is a path forward. And for the record, I'm a willing partner, which is why so many of my proposals began with trying to meet the legislature where they are. I firmly believe we can achieve universal access to paid family and medical leave. We can make historic investments in child care, helping thousands more families access affordable options. We can act on mitigating climate change. We can create housing for homeless Vermonters. We can expand treatment and prevention for opioid addiction and mental health needs. And we can do all of it in a way that doesn't increase costs on already overburdened and overtaxed Vermonters, and without setting us up for serious and very real fiscal problems in the future. I truly believe we can get the outcomes we all want if we work at it. So with that, I'll open up to questions.
Governor, some of your fellow colleagues and governors and in contention in the court in Texas and the circuit now. Are you pursuing any sort of similar plans?
We have contemplated that, and we have conferred with the AG's office for one, and we've also been in contact with Planned Parenthood to seek advice. And at this point in time, I think the consensus is we should wait until Friday and see what happens before moving forward. So I spoke to a couple other governor's offices in the Northeast to see what they're doing, and I think we all agreed, why don't we just wait and see what happens, and then we'll go from there and see what we need to do.
My understanding of this whole situation at large is that state governments are pretty limited in how they can respond and what they can do. I mean, if there's a nationwide injunction on access to this medication, Vermont can't single-handedly keep it legal or what have you. I mean, how does it feel to be sort of constrained in this situation?
Well, we do. I mean, first of all, the FDA, I don't believe the Biden administration is going to let the FDA prevent the FDA from supplying states with the needed medication. Secondly, I think we're in a somewhat unique position here in Vermont. We are one of 3 states who have sought to be able to purchase drugs in Canada. Ourselves, Colorado, and Florida. And so we're just waiting for approval from the feds to do so. And so we'll just have to see where we go from there.
I'm actually not familiar with the plans to purchase drugs from Canada. Can you explain a little bit more?
We along again with 2 other states, and this started a couple of years ago, I believe, and we've asked. This was based on, I guess, some of the dialogue that we've had. I think Senator Sanders has been working on this for a long time, and we decided to try and move forward. So we sought approval from the federal government to do so. And they are considering what we're proposing. And again, we're one of 3 states who have at least gotten past go on this and are in the middle of maybe negotiations and so forth. It seems to be stalled out. But again, this could be a way to obtain that particular drug in Canada.
Governor, you mentioned the state assisting refugees, certainly in your budget. I know there's been an influx of refugees at the northern border in New York and in Vermont. What services do you see? Maybe Commissioner Morrison can chime in too. But what services do you see the state providing for some of these individuals coming to Vermont? And at what point do you see maybe some of those services becoming constrained?
Well, what we're seeing at this point, and I might ask maybe some others to weigh in on this as well, but what we're seeing thus far is they're crossing into the state, and then they just transfer to other states. We're just a pathway to other states. I would like to see some consider Vermont, to be honest with you. I mean, considering our demographic challenges and workforce issues, we might need some folks. We do need some to stay. So, but thus far, it hasn't been a long stay for any of them at this point. But we have been anticipating this for a while, just in case type of scenarios. So we have some plans moving forward if we get somewhat overwhelmed. But I don't see that happening at this point, especially with the action taken by Canada and the U.S. with President Biden and Prime Minister Trudeau in their agreement to somewhat close the border off.
Can you maybe expand a little bit what those plans look like?
Well, again, we're considering some of this when, as you recall, it may have been a year ago, maybe less, when there's some southern states who were busing and flying some of the migrants to other states, and we weren't sure if we were going to be targeted as well. So we wanted to be prepared for that. So again, we worked together with our Labor Department, our Agency of Human Services, Public Safety, and so forth, and we're just trying to anticipate if this happens, what are we going to do? We didn't want to be surprised. So we put a plan together. I don't have the details of that, but we've considered a number of different options. Anybody else want to say anything more?
Jenny.
Secretary Samuelson, is there anything I should add to that?
No, I think you're exactly right. Or Mr. Morrison can weigh in. As we contemplated, it's only a trickle of folks coming in now, but services that we've looked at are housing, food, sheltering, those types of services. But for right now, folks are really coming into the state and needing assistance with transportation to their goal location.
Just going back to the potential or the pending decision on West Christone. So you agree with the actions the AG has taken in receipt?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an FDA decision. It was made a long time ago, and I don't think it's for the court to decide, but that's just my opinion. I'm sure that they will have their legal disagreements on that, and we'll see it play out over the next few days.
Decision stands. I mean, I've heard concerns of people saying, what if district judges now are given the power to overrule FDA decisions for other medications that are politically opposed to, say, vaccines or medications that use certain research methods and R&D. Are you worried about that?
Yeah. Yes, I am. I think it does set a precedent, and I'm concerned about that.
Governor, as you've seen, there's a big rally today on the State House lawn, maybe north of 200-300 people. We don't know, but you of course, as you mentioned, have outlined your vision of child care, bolstering subsidies, but not raising taxes or new fees. The pro tem and the speaker are both out there. This is a big priority of theirs. I mean, have you had any additional conversations with them or Chair Kornheiser or anybody else regarding the current child care proposal where it stands?
Well, they seem to be fairly far apart between the House and the Senate, to be honest with you. So they haven't even come to agreement. But the leadership is fully aware of my stance on this and our proposals. Again, as a reminder, let's go back a bit. I've been proposing child care subsidies and increases for the last 6 years. Many times the legislature has cut those proposals and not moved forward with that. But we've actually doubled our provisions for child care since then. And the proposal I put forward in the budget for this year raises another $56 million on top of what we already do. So that makes it about $120 million. I'd say that's pretty substantial. So we feel and that includes those at 400% of poverty level that would be included. Now, again, I believe it's the Senate that came up with a proposal that includes 600%. So it's the same path forward. In when you look at the proposal we made and the Senate has made, it's just theirs is more generous. I mean, just going to the 600% versus the 400%. So it feels as though, from my standpoint, that we have a path forward, and then I believe we should do it in steps so we don't have to raise taxes in order to do so.
And I guess lastly on that, I mean, have you heard any chatter this legislative session about regulation of child care facilities? As you know, I mean, 10 years ago, a lot of mom and pop shops closed because of increased regulation. Has that been a question that you've been hearing, or anything that your office has been fielding from?
Well, I may again refer to Secretary Samuelson on that, but obviously this has been an area that we've been fully involved with over the years, but I haven't specifically heard about their proposals in the in the legislature. Secretary Samuelson, anything you can add to the conversation?
No, Governor, we haven't heard those specific proposals. We'll need to loop back to.
Governor, on the subject of legislative compensation, the Senate has amended or is going to be amending a proposal that would essentially increase lawmakers' pay by increasing the length of time it would take to do so to 4 years instead of 2. Are you familiar with that plan, and how do you generally feel about lawmaker pay increases?
Yeah.
and benefit increases?
I'm not familiar with what they're doing with that bill now. I've said in the past, I'm in favor of increasing their pay as long as they reduce the length of the session. I think they can get their work done in 90 days, give them a contract amount. They can increase their pay incrementally, whatever they want to do, but get it done in 90 days. Because if the real goal is to get more participation, more people running for office, I think the length of the session is probably a bigger issue than the pay. To have, and I've served in the legislature, to go to your employer, I've heard this many, many times, to go to your employer and say, I'd like to run for the legislature. The next question is, how long will you be gone? How long will you be absent? And they say, I really don't know. It's somewhere between 4 months and 6 months. It could be there's no ending really until the budget passes. I know myself, I've been here since into June, before June maybe 15th or something like that. So that prevents a lot of people from running for office. So if they really want, if that's the goal, is to get more participation, then do both. You know, you can increase your pay, but reduce the length of the session. It can be done. Many other states do it. I believe there's at least, I don't know, 10, 11 other states that have 90-day sessions, and we're a small state. We should be able to do that.
I mean, as someone who served in the legislature for a long time, obviously, is there anything you can think of in the way that they go about their business that could shrink the amount of time without losing the effectiveness of the bills they send to your desk? I mean, you want those things to be well researched and thoughtful and
Sure.
agreed upon. So,
Well, again, if you pay more money, right?
yeah.
Maybe you work 5 days a week instead of 4. Maybe you don't take off a week in between. Maybe there's something you have to do. Maybe you have to work later at night, like the rest of us do in the private sector. I mean, there's ways to get it done. And maybe you don't take up some of your time with things that aren't going to make it through. You have to prioritize, just like we do in our everyday lives, in our own budgets, our own lives. You have to prioritize. And I think we have to do a better job here.
I have a question about Vermont's assisted suicide bill. There's a law. There's a bill to remove the residency requirement so that people from other states could come to Vermont to get that type of care here. Are you familiar with that?
I am.
Are you supportive of that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
You're
I'm okay with
you're
that.
okay with other people coming to Vermont
Yes.
to end their lives? Why?
Well, I just don't think you can shut down the border. I think it's something that has to be opened to any and all.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't use it as a way to draw more people here,
Right.
but at the same time, I don't think the border should be the barrier.
And in your earlier remarks, I thought I heard you say that you thought you and the legislature were on the same page about universal paid family leave.
Yeah.
Did I have that right? Because universal is the modifier that they use for their plan.
Right.
And are you now coming around to the
No, I
idea
think
of universal
what
meaning?
what I've said all along, and I don't know as I maybe I haven't articulated it as well as I should have, but I've said we need to create a structure. We need a framework. And there's nothing better than what we're trying to do, a voluntary type of program to start with, creating a structure that where we don't have to build out a bureaucracy here in the government. We don't have to hire 60, 70 people to oversee it. We don't have to have an IT system. We don't have to get establish a capital reserve to fund it. We can do this in the private sector. They already do this work. They do it every day. So we're doing this right now. We have a plan we're moving forward with for our state employees that's going to do just that. So we just want to expand that. And so let's do that. It's going to take every proposal I've seen from the legislature is going to take 3-4 years to implement. And I'm saying, let's do the voluntary path. Let's establish what works, what doesn't, and then maybe we can cater the plan for Vermont as we learn more about it with what we're doing with state employees and so forth. And then in 3 or 4 years, when the revenue, hopefully in the state, continues to grow, if we bring more people in, then you can make it universal. You can pay for it. You can pay for it out of existing dollars. But I think eventually, I think that's the path forward. I think everyone should have it. But I don't think that's what it's always about the how. I just don't think we can do everything they want to do in 1 year. You can't have paid family leave and child care and some of the other provisions all in 1 year. I think it has to be staged over a number of years. And what they're doing is it's going to take 3 or 4 years to put their plans into place, and we're still going to be paying for it and not receiving the benefit. Ours, we actually get to try it out.
Governor, the House gave preliminary approval to 16-year-old local voting in Brattleboro. Your thoughts on that?
I think I vetoed something similar to that previously. I don't think my thoughts have changed much on it.
Good. Also, critics of S37 say that it has no minimum age limits for puberty blockers or sex reassignment surgery. Now that our Constitution assures reproductive liberty, are you concerned that standards of care could shift to allow middle schoolers to elect surgery over the wishes of their parents?
What's S37?
The gender reassignment and abortion and transgender
It's the Senate
services.
Shields bill. It shields providers from professional repercussions for delivering reproductive care.
Got it. And did that pass the Senate then? Is it in the House now?
Yes.
Okay. I can't pretend to know all the intricacies of that bill. I can certainly, we can confer with my cabinet members, those who are involved in it, and then go from there. But I guess I can't comment on that at this point in time.
The House Corrections and Institutions Committee has had some lengthy debate this session about the Women's Correctional Facility up north, and plans to build a new facility, how many beds should be in it. I know it's down the line. Still, we're early in talks on this, but where do you stand right now?
I think we proposed it. We put it in the bill. So that the number, I think it was 100 and, I'm going to guess, 130 beds, something like that, facility. I mean, we've known for quite some time that, and this was back in my days in the Senate, that we needed to do something to upgrade the women's facility in particular. I went for field trips there with my committee and got to see it with our own eyes and thought we should do better. There's the main model that appears to be the best approach that we've seen thus far. So I'm in favor of moving forward with something. That's what we put in the bill. Hopefully the legislature will agree.
So back in February, Vermont State Colleges made what became a pretty controversial decision, moving physical libraries and books, and they wanted to go fully digital. And there's a Senate bill, they received testimony today, that Vermont State Colleges would have to go through the legislature to be able to make any changes, whether it's the libraries, cut librarians' hours. Because what are your thoughts that the university might have to go through the general?
I think it's a terrible idea. I think that type of micromanaging, when we're telling them you got to live within your means, you got to figure out how you're going to support yourself without more money from the legislature. We passed this last year. The goal was they were supposed to save, I think, another $5 million this year. And I'm not saying that what they did was the right thing to do, but we can't micromanage. If we're going to give them a directive, we can't micromanage that. You have to let them figure out what the best path forward is for them.
I believe we have Tom Davis from Compass Vermont on the line. We had you unmuted for a second, and it looks like you remuted yourself, Tom.
Yeah, we're not hearing you, Tom. I think you're talking, but we're not hearing you. I'm sorry.
Is Ed Barber from Newport Daily Express on? Tom, feel free to, if you have a question, send it to me and we can get a response to you this afternoon.
Thank you. I had no questions. Thank you.
We did hear that.
I'll take the gold star, Governor.
All right. You got it.
Any others in the room?
Did you have a nice Easter?
I'm sorry?
Did you have a nice Easter?
Yes. Took a hike up the hill next to our house, and it was a beautiful day.
Governor, it's been reported that during a swatting incident at the Middlebury Library, police outside could not communicate with police inside due to problems with the $12 million VCOM communication system. Some first responders say it's too complicated to train workers and that accessing it on cell phones is difficult. Any thoughts about this?
Yeah, I know I've heard some of the same thing that you're describing, but I don't have any details at this point. I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of it.
Is this the first you're hearing of issues with the VCOM system?
Well, during the pandemic, actually, when we were transitioning to this new system, there was some complaints during the transition, but I hadn't heard of any since, to be honest with you.
Is it concerning for you at all that you have heard these concerns?
Well, I mean, obviously, we want people to be able to communicate during those types of situations. So, again, I have complete faith in our Department of Public Safety and our Commissioner, and I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of it and fix it.
If the House doesn't restore the 25 unit Act 250 exemption for housing, is that a deal killer? Is that a veto thing?
You know, I've been saying for quite some time that we need to do something about Act 250, and if we're really serious about housing, then, and if this is really truly a crisis, then we better address it like it's a crisis and do something about this provision. VLCT has some issues with it. I don't know if they're supportive of this at this point in time, but there's so many good parts of the bill. I wanted to acknowledge that. It's in the House now. They have the ability to fix it and support it and move forward.
Governor, on the subject of EVs, I think we're really about to see EV sales take off in the state of Vermont, but in the past you've expressed concern that they may not be paying their way to keep
EVs, as you know, have one as a daily driver myself. We have to continue. We are really on the forefront of providing for the infrastructure, charging infrastructure and so forth, and we need to continue to grow that and having faster chargers, more of them in more parts of the state in addition to this electric technology. So at the same time, I think we're about 6% of the sales at this point, and I believe it will grow. I mean, we're seeing more and more manufacturers that are coming out with some pretty ingenious type of vehicles. So we'll, but having said that, as we grow and continue to have more EVs, there has to be a user fee. We have to making sure that Vermonters are treated appropriately.
Is there an argument to be made for not doing that so that people are more incentivized to buy an EV, which is still a little more expensive than than a gas-powered vehicle?
Well, again, I'm always in favor of tax reductions, fee reductions, but in this case, that's the way, and I believe the country has to come to grips with this as well. That's the way we pay for our highways, our bridges and roads and so forth, is through fuel. So if it's, I don't see how we can do without it. We're going to have to make some decision on this sooner rather than later. I think the country needs to do so as well. We're going to have to upgrade the grid. I think Velco has talked about this. I've had conversations with them as well. So we can't, I think we can handle the infrastructure, the charging infrastructure at this point in time. But when we start adding more heat pumps and so forth, and when you try and renovate or